Hey, Rolling Out family. Welcome to another edition of Rolling Out Music, where we spotlight the voices, instruments, and innovators pushing the culture forward. Today, we're excited to introduce to you a true musical force, Marqueal Jordan. Marqueal is a triple threat, a saxophonist deeply rooted in jazz tradition, a soul-stirring vocalist evoking legends, and a dynamic band leader who electrifies every stage he steps on. A Los Angeles native, raised in Kansas City, Kansas, and now a proud Chicagoan for over 30 years. Marqueal has carved out a sound that is uniquely his, with 3 solo albums, multiple Billboard top 20 smooth jazz singles under his belt. He's a veteran who's just getting started. And as he gets ready to perform at the All Jazz Dinner Series at Messler, we sat down with him to talk to him about his journey, what fuels his creativity, and what audiences can expect from this powerful experience. Marqueal, what's going on, brother?
What's good, Precise, man? Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Man, it's good to see you too, brother. I'm excited to talk to you. I'm surprised we haven't done this before.
Right. Now, I think timing is everything. So I think the time is right now. Let's get it cracking.
Yes, timing is everything. So let's start from the beginning. Let's start at your roots.
Okay.
How did your life in LA and Kansas City shape your musical identity?
In LA, it was really me being exposed to the music that I play now and the music that I love, whether I play it or not, stylistically through my father. He had a great record collection. He's a frustrated musician himself. He had kids pretty young. And, instead of being able to pursue some kind of musical dreams, he was like a percussionist and a vocalist. Instead of being able to do that, like all the kids of the 70s, we all took lessons and stuff. Like my 2 older sisters took piano lessons starting off. And when I was 5, I took drum lessons, but that didn't really amount to too much. But, my dad played a lot of jazz at the house. So I really got into John Coltrane at an early age. And that was really kind of the spark that started me to really want to do it. So I played clarinet and listened to as much music as I could at the house. And, did that from like the 3rd through the 6th grade. And then we wound up moving to Kansas City. But in the 7th grade, before I moved to KC, that's when I finally got my hands on the tenor saxophone. So that's when it really, really started me being serious about doing music. And then we moved, because of my father's job, we moved to the Midwest. And that actually helped me in ways that I really wasn't aware of at the time. I was just really disappointed and frustrated that I had to move from Los Angeles to Kansas City, Kansas. But man, it was the mid 80s. So it was right during the height of crack. And of course, the Crips and the Bloods were really, 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 really notorious around that time, especially with the drug game being pretty heavy at that time. So I escaped all of that. Not that Kansas City didn't have it. And there were a lot of California transplants. My dad worked for General Motors. So it was a lot of us from like mostly the Bay Area, but a lot of us from LA area too that moved to Kansas City. And, the gang culture migrated there too, but it wasn't as prevalent as it was in Los Angeles. So it just let me grow up, without that stress, without having to worry about being in a gang and doing all of those kinds of things. I was pretty much able to grow up as a cool nerd playing music. So that's what Kansas City, Kansas did for me, for real.
Yeah. So what was it about, you mentioned John Coltrane. What was it about Coltrane that drew you in?
I mean, probably looking back on it now, I just wanted to be as cool as my dad. Like that was really what initially was. That was music my father listened to. So I wanted to, be like Pops. So, but really it had to be his sound. Now that I think about it, like he sounded like nobody else. And that emotion that just like, he hits you right here, and it's hard to like really put it into words. You feel it more than I can explain it. But that sound was just, man, there was nothing like it. And it really was emotional. It just tapped into all of those kinds of things. So that was what I aspired to want to do. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I didn't know what it was going to take, but it was just like that spirit that moved through him that touches everybody that really listens to John Coltrane. Whether if you listen passively or really actively, it's something about that sound that's just like, wait a minute, this is different. This is different. So I think that's what it was.
So, okay, so LA by way of Kansas City, then to Chicago. So Chicago's been your home for the
Yeah.
past 30 years.
Yeah.
How has the city influenced your evolution as an artist?
Man, first and foremost, Chicago helped me grow up as a man. I was right out of college and, I went to University of Kansas, which is pretty much right down the road from Kansas City, Kansas. So I was in a jazz ensemble. I played in bar bands, would do like jazz combos and stuff like that. But, I actually got to Chicago in a very, very haphazard way. It was really only God, but looking back at it, but my girlfriend, my college girlfriend and myself, we decided to move here. And there was a cat that I knew that I played in a bar band with. He was also in the KU Jazz Ensemble with me. This dude by the name of Scott Left. He had moved up here like maybe 6 months before I did. So I was like, okay, I can consider Chicago because my man is there. We could play music. We could start a band. We could do some things. But, it was just really one of those things where I had to hit the ground running and really had to learn on the fly. And the one thing that I'll say about Chicago, it's going to give you some hard knocks, but it gives it to you in a loving way. I think, the Chicago way really is to nurture you, beat you up a little bit. We're really going to nurture you. We're going to love you through all of this stuff. And I think that's why the emotion in the music and why what we do here is different from everywhere else. I think if I'd have went to Los Angeles right out of college, which was really what my dream was, it would have been a different experience for me. I would have needed to have been more professional than I was at age 24. So I think I would have either had to sink or swim, either could have gotten washed out, could have gotten into some different things, but here was like, okay, you're pretty good. Let's see where you go. And I was able to get into a bunch of different situations, play a bunch of different styles of music, meet a lot of musicians on the north side or the south side or the west side. Like, I was able to be immersed in all of the culture of Chicago, which I think has really fed me more than anything else that I could think of. Just being able to be versatile and play these different styles of music with these different styles of musicians. And it was just a lot of gigs. So, prior to that, I didn't have any of that kind of experience. It was just in college, playing around, at the bars in the college town that I was in, and then doing stuff for school. But here it was like, okay, we need to feel you. We need to understand you. You need to know what you're singing about. If you're singing the blues, you got to really tap into that culture here. It's prevalent here. Same thing with jazz. So, those things, those are lessons, those hard knock lessons that I got. I don't think any other city could have given me those lessons in the way that Chicago did, in a loving way, but in a real way. And then it let me develop into the artist that I have become to be.
So the artist that you are is a triple threat. So
right.
Saxophonist, vocalist, and bandleader.
Yeah.
Which one of those came first, and how did the others develop?
Saxophone came first. I always sang, but I never really took it seriously because I thought as a youngster, I realized that I had perfect pitch in high school. And I realized I had a good ear, maybe a couple of years before high school. I could like sing along to like the DeBarge songs of the day, like when I was in junior high in LA, just to impress the little girls and stuff. So, but I never took it seriously because I was thinking, I don't sound like Stevie Wonder, like for real. I can mimic that, but I didn't really think that I had a style or I just didn't take it seriously. But moving to Chicago was the thing that really kind of kicked me in the ass to do it, because Scott and I wanted to start a band, and the whole thing was we didn't want to hire another person to be a lead singer. We really didn't want to have to deal with another ego in the band. And he was like, you sing better out of the two of us, so then you got to do it. I was like, man, I just want to play saxophone. I don't want to do that. But, I had to get over my fear of getting in front of people and singing and just the reps that I got in. I realized I actually had a gift for it. So the singing came second. The band leader thing came last, because I don't think you can really lead until you got to be a good side man. You got to be a good, part of a band. You got to know what your part is in the situation and play that role. And then you can see where you can fit in, or where you can, you know, say, okay, we need to arrange the music this way, or let's do this song, or let's do that. You know, it took some years to get to a point where I felt comfortable leading the band. And really, I learned by being in the band I keep referencing. The name of that band was Fat Time. So we played from like 95 to like the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And so I was the front man. So really, being the front man, I was like leader in training. Scott was really the leader. Like, he wrote most of the music. He arranged everything. He made all the calls. He got all the gigs. He did all that kind of stuff. So I learned that part of the game kind of by watching him and his approach to what he was doing. And then I was learning how to be a front man and really front a band, you know, and be a band leader on stage. And that stuff became like real natural to me after a while. I just had to get over the fear of standing in front of a mic and singing in front of people. Then all of this, all the influences would come out. Like, you know, I'm into jazz, obviously, but when I'm in front of a mic, then I'm into James Brown, Marvin Gaye, Prince, you know, Michael Jackson. Not that I can sing exactly like those guys, but the things that they had as leaders, I kind of watched, and the way that they work on stage and how they would get down, you know, that's all a part of what I present on stage.
Yes, yes. I want to make sure that we honor this properly. Mm-hmm. So what's the name of the band? What's the name of your band again?
My current band right now, we play locally in Chicago. I tour all over the nation, and the world on occasion.
Before you get into that,
yeah.
The reason I bring that up, because you brought up Scott and the name of the band. I just wanted you to name the band and then shout out Scott.
Yeah, let me shout out my man Scott Left. That name, that band was called Fat Time. We actually were named after a Miles Davis song. But the band that I'm currently in, the one that I'm working with now, we're going through a few permutations with the name. So we used to be called Marqueal Jordan and the Players. And when I was working on my third record, I actually wanted to feature the band on the record. But then I found out that there was this band from Chicago that put out a record called The Players. So I was like, well, we can't use that. So I was talking to my man in the band, a bassist by the name of Lamar Jones. He was like, man, why don't you figure out The Players in another language? So I wound up with the Swahili name of The Players, which is the Wachasaji, which is hard to say. People think it's Asian, but it's it's Swahili. So that's the name of my current band, Marqueal Jordan and the Wachasaji.
That's dope. You know, you mentioned, traveling the world, performing. You've performed with some legendary acts. What have been some of your most memorable performance moments? I
toured a long time with a smooth jazz artist by the name of Brian Culbertson. And he's really, that situation is what got me out here as an artist. I see you clapping. That's what's up. I toured with him for 11 years, but the second year I was in the band, I think my greatest touring experience, we spent a week in Japan. So we were in Tokyo and Osaka at the Billboard Live in both of those cities. And, Culbertson is obviously huge here, but in Japan, the only way that they would book him, he had to bring some heavyweights with him. So I was out there, bro, with Larry Graham and Larry Dunn from Earth, Wind & Fire, keyboard player from Earth, Wind & Fire. Yeah. And also a gentleman who was also in Brian's band, but he spent a long time with Earth, Wind & Fire. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. His name is Sheldon Reynolds. So it was like Brian Culbertson and the Funk All-Stars. And that, my first time in Japan, actually my only time in Japan. It was amazing, man. That was 2009. So that one sticks out, just to be on stage with Larry Graham. And man, he would go up, there was like a couple of balconies. So he would go up to the second balcony, and like it's kind of like in a U shape. So there's a table that's right here, but the wall is maybe about that high. You step off the other way, you are falling down. He would jump on that table, facing in the opposite direction, playing bass and singing, fearless. Like, he was 65, I think, at the time, man. And it was just like, wow, man, I'm on stage with somebody who changed music. So that hands down was my best experience, still is to this day.
That sounds legendary. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that you mentioned Brian Culbertson because it tees up my question about this genre, smooth jazz, right?
Hmm.
So smooth jazz has its peaks and valleys in the industry. What keeps you inspired and keeps you creating in this genre?
Really the fan base, man. Like it's a family fan base. So the fans that Brian had have become my fans. They follow my career. If I have a show near them, they'll go, whether it's in that city or if it's maybe 4 hours away. I've had people fly in places to come and check me out. I mean, it's really a very strong fan base. And I think the reality of the situation also is when it comes to my musical experiences in college and in Chicago, it seems like my style and you know the skill set that I have is best suited for a genre of contemporary or smooth jazz. Titles are always something that every musician kind of really balks at because it kind of boxes you in. But being a smooth jazz artist allows me to go up on stage and I can play like my heroes. I could play like John Coltrane. I could play like Maceo Parker. I could play like Grover Washington Jr. all into one. You
Yep.
know, if I was playing a different style or a more straight ahead version of jazz, maybe that would be a little frowned upon. It's a little different now, like because guys like Glasper have kind of busted the door wide open where you can pretty
Mhm.
much do whatever. But the singing aspect, I mean, really smooth jazz, when you break it down, is just instrumental R&B. So,
Yes.
you know, so that is what my sweet spot is, R&B and soul and jazz influenced stuff. So that's what keeps me in the genre. That's where the fans know me, and it's just a real loyal fan base. I mean, sometimes I feel the constraints of the genre,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to the mechanics of it, when it comes to radio play and what gets played and what doesn't get played and all those kinds of things. So you just always want to break out of the shell, but it's the core of what I do right now, and
Right.
it has been since I've been an artist, since my first record came out in 2013.
Speaking of records, you've had albums that landed on the Billboard charts, brother.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, this isn't something we're gonna just glaze past, right? You made it on the Billboard jazz charts. What kind of recognition, what does that kind of recognition mean to you?
It means everything, especially being in the genre with Brian Culbertson, and you get to meet everybody. So I've met Kirk Whalum, I've met Eric Marienthal, I've met Gerald Albright, and people like that. So I'm on stage and on the charts with people who are my heroes, people I looked up to. So that in and of itself is just a blessing. From the business aspect of it, it's pretty important that you have some music on the charts and get some radio play, so people worldwide really can see who you are, know who you are, and that would, that makes it so I can play a show in Columbia, South Carolina, or in Los Angeles back home, like those kinds of things. So it was really important. And it means that people are checking out the music and they actually enjoy it, not just the fans, but the radio promoters and the radio stations dig it. So it just lets me know that, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm on the right path.
So if you can, take me back to the moment where you found out that you made it onto the Billboard charts.
Man, I wish it was something magical, but when
Mhm.
you get the way the game works is you get a radio promoter and they present the music to the stations and they send you weekly reports. So you're checking out the reports, and then like in the email, I remember the first time it happened, because I put out a single on my first record and really didn't know what I was doing. So that whole first album experience was a learning experience. Second album, when I put out my first single, it didn't reach the top 30. So it's 30 spots on the smooth jazz singles chart. So I got close, but I didn't make it to the top 30 with my first single with the radio promoter on the second album. So the second single is entitled If You Only Knew. When I first got the email and the promoter was like, yo, you broke the top 20, or you broke the top 30. I was like, that. I mean, of course I was happy, because that was the goal. And then from there, you just kind of sit and you get the weekly reports, and then it's somewhat exciting, like to see how far it rises before it falls, because every single has a shelf life. And all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, that first single that charted, I was pretty happy and felt fairly vindicated too. So it was all love. It was great.
Yeah, that's gotta feel good. The All That Jazz Dinner series at Metzler is such a vibe,
Yeah.
right? The Metzler is a vibe.
Hmm.
What does performing at an event like this mean for you?
First and foremost, man, and I think it's something that I can't gloss over. I've really enjoyed over the last, I would say, 15 years of performing in a lot of spaces where I'm performing to people that look like me. And
Hmm.
it's nothing like it. The energy is different. We come from music, we know the music. I appreciate all the audiences, do not get me wrong, but it's something about playing for us that is fulfilling in a way spiritually that it's hard to put into words. And the Messler is in one of my favorite neighborhoods in Chicago, right smack dab in Hyde Park on the Strip, 53rd Street. So to be able to play there, and this is actually going to be my first time performing there, so I'm pretty excited about it. And I'm doing a pared down version of what I do. It's going to be myself and my longtime keyboardist, Amr Fahmy. So we just gonna go in, man. We play some Branford Marsalis. We're gonna play some Marvin Gaye. We're gonna, we'll be able to tap the gamut of the musical culture, and everybody there is gonna have something that they can really vibe out to, and it's gonna be cool, man. Food's great, the cocktails are great, and the atmosphere is wonderful. So I'm really excited about doing it.
Yes, yes, yes. So you mentioned what you'd be performing, you're scaling it down a bit. So
Mhm.
how do you prepare for a more intimate performance compared to a larger festival or arena setting?
Actually, I kind of get up a little bit more for an intimate performance because it allows me to tap into sides of my musical personality that I don't necessarily get to do on a festival stage or a bigger show stage. Because in those moments, you have to put on a show. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's not necessarily about how musical you can be. It's about how impactful you can be.
Hmm.
The rises and the falls, the story that you tell, the arc. I mean, every show that you do really has to have those elements, or it really isn't a show. You're just up there just playing music. But the great thing about an intimate show is I could play a whole lot more saxophone, which is really when I started doing this as a kid, that's what I really wanted to do. I didn't envision myself being on stage singing and jumping around. I envisioned myself standing flat footed and just playing my saxophone like Train, or my saxophone idol who I really picked up when I was in high school, Branford Marsalis. So I really envision myself being like that. So when it's an intimate show, I don't sing as much. I play a lot more, and I really kind of dig deep into that. And with my man Amr on keyboards, we kind of come from that same vibe. So most of the time, we just call the songs. We don't even have a set list. We don't say what music we're gonna do. We just get into a vibe, and we're like, okay, so what you want to do? All right, yeah, let's do the Butterfly. Let's do Herbie Hancock. All right, cool. What's next? You pick it, Amr. Man, you know this song? I was like, man, I don't even know it. We're gonna play it anyway. Let's do it. So it's I fly by the seat of my pants a lot more. It's a little more, I challenge myself a little more in those situations. And the people get to see the results of it. And I think that's the coolest thing about doing like a pared down show, is that you get to be more musical, a little more intimate, but still not playing for ourselves, but still trying to create and give some emotion and pull the audience in. So that's the big challenge about doing that, because especially it's a dinner setting, people hanging out, they're enjoying themselves in their own way already. So you got to find a way to pull them in. And I've been blessed with the gift to be able to pull people in, no matter what the environment is, no matter what the musical setting is, no matter how big or small a band is. That's one of the things that God blessed me with. And I use it all the time.
Look, your set's going to be on June 26th, and you just mentioned a song that you have to perform now that you brought
Yeah.
it up.
Oh yeah, of course.
Hancock, like you got to do that one.
I will for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be sure to remind you when I show up too, just so you know.
You better, bro. You better do that, man. Come on. I'm waiting.
Definitely. We're in an industry where The digital age has drastically changed everything. How,
Hmm.
how have you adapted while staying true to your sound?
It's a challenge because in a way it frees you up to be able to do whatever it is you want to do, but then it also confines you at the same time because it's how do you break through in in a medium now where anybody can do this music,
Yeah.
regardless of musical ability, regardless of how many years they study whatever they're studying. It's that's the great thing about it being wide open like that. Anything can catch your ear and it could, it could become great. But it's also hard to stand out among millions and millions of people at the same time. And the cruel reality of the situation is that, it has definitely tamped down what little money we could make being musicians as it is anyway from recorded music. It's devalued recorded music and the art, so really the only ways that musicians can really get out here or artists can get out here and earn a living is by performing. You know, most of my money comes from just performing shows. And the irony of that is, the people that come to see your shows may not know you have any new music out. It doesn't even really matter to them. It's like, how can I pull them in? So, I think it's the people that have been able to leverage digital music and all of those platforms well, it works out very well for them. It's still not necessarily lucrative per se, but it gets your music out to the entire world, and that's a good thing about it. It's not, you don't really have to rely on a distributor or a label. You can do it yourself, and so it is giving you that freedom, to kind of make the playing field where anybody can get into this game. But who wins when there's a million plus billion plus players, playing the same game?
Well, with that said, what advice would you give musicians who are trying to build a sustainable and authentic music career?
Wow. I think the biggest thing is to be yourself, to be authentic in this music. We all have idols, we all have styles that we try to emulate and things that we want to do, looking up to other people or even looking at our peers. But no one is going to be a better version of you than you. And that is the thing that makes it different. John Coltrane was inspired by saxophone players like Earl Bostic and Charlie Parker, and, Dexter Gordon. But at the end of the day, he sounded like him. Like whatever it was that he learned from all the different situations he was in, he presented himself. And that's the thing that we all love, So I think that's the biggest advice I could give aspiring musicians is to really find your voice, tap into that. There's an audience for your voice. Somebody's going to really dig what you present, but you have to present it, and you have to be consistent with that voice. And that's hard. It doesn't happen over time. I really think now, after all of this time of me doing what I've been doing, that I finally know what my strength is, what my voice is, and how I reach people and how I touch people. It's an ongoing thing. But if you have the love for the music, you'll stay with it. You'll do it because it's like any artistic endeavor. It's not necessarily going to be about the money you make. It's going to be about the love that you have for it and that you put in it and you put through it. And that's what's going to connect to people. It's not, if you can jump on the latest sound or, if you got this or that. It's what you present and your love for it is what people connect to.
So, lastly, what's next for Marqueal Jordan? Any new music? Any collaborations? Any shows that we should be looking out for?
Man, I'm laughing because it's I've been talking about this record. I need to get it done. But the next thing is my next project that I'll be working on is it's going to be called The Adventures of Chocolate Tone. So I'll explain what that means. Chocolate Tone is like, I've come up with a few nicknames for myself over the years, but this is my latest one. And it really stems from my father. It's a throwback to my father. My father's name is Anthony, AKA Tony. And when I was a kid, as most African-American families, I'm like the darkest one in my family, right? So I was closer in complexion to my mom. And my father and my two older sisters, they're closer in complexion. So they're more like your complexion. You know what I'm saying? So, but the older I got, because everybody would say, you look like your mom, you look like your mom. And my mom would say, you don't look like me, you look like a chocolate version of Tone. So I just chopped it off and was like Chocolate Tone. So that's the next project. And it's going to be something that's going to be a little more out of the box, where I can put a little more of my music personalities in it. It might be some hip hop, and all of my records kind of had little pieces of my personality in it, hip hop here and there, whatever, but just kind of leaning more in on like the vocal side of things, and maybe some more progressive instrumental music too. Just something that really kind of speaks to all of my musical influences on all of those experiences and presented in that way. So it's kind of a wide thing to kind of put my arms around, but I'm excited. I really want to go in and let it be more band focused, because a lot of smooth jazz music and a lot of my music has been collaborations with different producers. That's kind of how the game works. But I really want to present the Wachisaji, full front, and let my sound and that thing be the thing. As far as collaborations, those are kind of in the talks with some other artists, and we'll see what happens. I did a lot of collaborations last year with a bunch of different artists. And I also got to give a shout out to my man DJ INC here in Chicago. We've worked together for over 25 years. We're always working on music together. So I'm sure there'll be something before the end of the year that'll come out that I'm doing with him on his label. But look for a single soon. I would say probably in the fall, we'll have some new music coming out. And that may be a precursor to the Chocolate Tone record, or it might be a standalone single. We just got to have to kind of see what happens. I'm just open at this point to it all.
Well, just so you know, since you open, if you need like 16 bars, I'm here for you.
Bruh,
I'll still do my thing.
Good. I'm good, man. And I have to share this with the viewers and everything, man. Like, we first met on the Million Man March bus almost 30 years ago, which is crazy to me. Like, and I didn't even realize it until I went back to my old notes and I saw your name and number on there. But I remember you being one of the coolest cats on the bus, man, because you were talking about the Roots. You were talking about Do You Want More album. So that was the first time I heard that record completely. And and I was on the way back from DC, man. So it was, you played an influence in this whole music thing with me without you really even knowing it. So that's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Bro, I never knew that.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. We were on.
Oh, wow.
And that's a bad thing, because we all exchanged numbers, and then of course we all kind of went our separate ways and didn't
right.
with each other. But yeah, man, that was my first year in Chicago, and it was obviously a life-changing, life-altering experience to be there that day. It was a beautiful.
Yeah. And here we are 30 years later, brother. What a blessing.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, I'm gonna take you up on that. We'll talk.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Yes.
So we talk about Marqueal now. Where can the people find you?
Okay, social media, Instagram is at Marqueal Jordan, and that's MarQueal Jordan. Same with Threads. On Facebook, it's Marqueal Jordan Music, same spelling. I have my website, also marquealjordan.com, which has my entire schedule. It's going to be a bunch of stuff happening in Chicago this summer, as it always is. And then I've got some shows coming up. I've got a show at the end of May in Louisville, got some shows in California in the summer, and got some stuff in the Carolinas, like around the 4th of July. San Antonio. We getting out there, which is great. We getting out there. We making some things happen, man. We really are.
You're moving around. Well, Marqueal, brother, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Precise. Really appreciate you, man. Great to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll see each other soon, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your musical wisdom with us. Your passion, versatility continue to move the culture and elevate jazz and soul experience for a new generation. Check out Marqueal at the Messler on June 26, 2025 for some live music. This is your man, Precise. And as I always say, stay focused, positive, and productive. Peace.